Hi everyone, how are you? Today I'm here with Mauricio, our WBC president, and I'm never in the camera, that's why I'm showing here for a little bit. I'm just going to ask the first question to Mauricio, then I'm going to run behind the camera again. But there's, I think we all need to know what happens on the WBC side before the fights. So let's start this interview. We need to learn the role of the WBC because a lot of people don't know. So I'm going to try to make give a similar example as if it was also a WBC training. So the boxers, they get the fight, they sign the contract, they go to training camp, train, make weight, weigh in, and fight. So what does the WBC do in each one of those steps? First of all, I think we all need to know what is the role of the WBC with the promoters and the promoters with the fighters.
The WBC has a very extensive checklist that we have to comply and to perform for every single championship fight. It all begins once the fight is petitioned by the promoter, when they have a letter requesting sanctioning, then that fight starts like a file. First thing is that we contact each fighter to get the exact and precise weight that they currently have. That way we know how much they have to lose from that point until fight day. And that is very valuable information because weight is a very important safety fact that we put a lot of attention. Then we have the 30-day weigh-in, 14-day weigh-in, and 7-day weigh-in. Mm-hmm. And of course, the mandatory official weight, which is 1 day before the fight. But we also perform a weight at the arena. And that serves as valuable information to make a profile of each single fighter so we can see what is the tendency. There are many fighters that gain much weight between fights, and that is not very healthy. We do have extensive medicals that have to be mandatory complied. We have great communications with the Boxing Commission, where the fight will take place, and the promoter. We do have activations that help promote the fight, that help promote the social responsibility programs. We implement the WBC Cares visits to hospitals. We do activations with local gymnasiums. Great activation in the social media. So
that you can say that is the WBC's workout, right?
Yes.
I mean, as the fighter is training and working out and making weight, the WBC is preparing everything for the fight, for that.
Yes, and there are many things that have to be accomplished. We contact the local boxing commission where the fight takes place, so we can agree on the ring officials that will work the fight. Of course, the supervisor has to perform many duties. Once the officials are confirmed, we check on the availability, on the travel plans, visas. Now with the COVID restrictions, a variety of other things that take place. We have many communications with the promoters. We, as I said, activations for social responsibility, some tickets giveaways, some museums, and many things that get done just prior to the fight.
Yeah, and going at the very beginning, sometimes there is agreement between the promoters, WBC, the fighters, but sometimes they can't reach an agreement, and then they have to go to a purse bid, right? How does that work?
There are two types of fights on the world championship level. When you're a champion, you can defend your title against a WBC approved challenger from the top 15 challengers. And those are the voluntary title defenses. But once a year, the champion has to do a mandatory title defense, which is the boxer that has been designated, approved, and voted by the WBC board to be the mandatory contender. Most of the times that comes from a series of elimination bouts or a final elimination, and then you are the confirmed mandatory contender. When there's a mandatory fight, we order the free negotiations between the two camps. They have 30 days to reach an agreement, and if they don't, then we have a purse offer, which means every single promoter that is registered in the WBC can bid to get the rights to promote such fight. And that's the way it usually happens.
Yeah, on the night of the fight, there's extensive paperwork that the WBC has implemented, has worked on for insurance and agreements and everything related to that night of the fight, right?
Yes, the WBC implemented the mandatory life and medical expenses insurance. So we need to gather the beneficiaries and signatures from the champion and the challenger, but also every fighter fighting in that card has an insurance. So we have to get every single fighter who fights in the card to get their beneficiary and their signature. The championship and challenger logos on their trunks, on their uniforms. Of course, the championship belt, the medal that is given to the fighter that loses the fight, the champion's t-shirt that is put after the fight. And it's an endless list of things that the supervisor, the anti-doping, we do with the clean boxing program, with VADA. We perform out-of-competition tests. And many fights are contracted to have such testing, but there's also the mandatory test after the fight. So it's many issues that we just work. People may think that we go and have a nice time in Las Vegas, while at the same time we usually never come out of the hotel and just spend the whole time doing a wide variety of things.
There have been some problems now during press conferences. Apparently, sometimes they get like extra excited. And I know the WBC has talked to promoters to try to put a limit as to, to prevent boxers from throwing punches or getting too aggressive during the press conferences.
Yeah, this is a very important topic. We are in the process of creating a code of conduct that is the product of a series of meetings with the promoters themselves. Well, we understand that boxing is boxing. There's aggression, there's hype, there's verbal attacks. But recently it has gone beyond what is acceptable. And with this code of conduct, everybody is going to be aware of what is and what is not accepted. And then there will be, in case of serious situations, penalties and every sort of consequences from their own behavior.
What is the role of the WBC during weigh-ins?
Well, the weigh-in is a very important event, simply because it's a culmination, the last step to have a fight official. So, as you can see, my little dog is telling me that the weigh-in has to be, because I have a lot of weight. So basically what we do is get to the arena, and that's where we get most of the fighters signed for the insurance. We have the last communications with the Boxing Commission. After the weigh-in is done, of course, if both fighters made weight, then it's official.
Yeah, what happens when one of them doesn't?
If they don't make weight, if one of the fighters or both do not make weight, they have 2 hours. Depends on the local jurisdiction, but it's a world uniformity standard that the fighter has 2 hours to come back and make the weight, the proper weight, the official weight, to be able to fight for the title. If the fighter does not make weight after the last attempt, then he can fight, but he will not be able to win the championship. If he is a champion and he doesn't make weight, he loses the title on the scale. The fight goes on, and if he wins, the title will be vacant. If the challenger wins, then he's a new champion. If the challenger didn't make weight, the champion has defended the title on the scale. They fight. If he loses, he will continue to be champion, or the title will be vacant, depending on what is the agreement on what happens exactly. There have been controversies, like Castillo, Corrales, that was a huge controversy. The fight continued, but he continued as champion even he lost the fight.
Mm-hmm. Benavides has had that situation also, right?
Yes, Benavides, but he didn't make weight and he lost the title. Mm-hmm. Neri didn't make weight in Japan and he lost the title. And leading up to the weigh-in, fighters are in a very strange mental position. They are very anxious, angry. It's been 2 months of extreme work, dehydration, and their attitude, to go to have there and have to smile and have the press conference and interviews. It's very difficult and complicated. Once they make weight, it's a new life for the fighter. After the weigh-in, we do the rules meeting and the check of the selection of gloves. And that's a normal procedure. We go through the important rules, make sure there are no questions or objections from both camps. They sign off, and then they check which gloves they're going to use for the fight. There have been so many controversies because of the gloves in the past, so now we are trying to secure that the fighters present the gloves 2 weeks in advance, 1 week in advance, so they are inspected by the local commission and they're ready, so there's no room for controversy.
And they keep the gloves, right, in their possession after they check them the day before.
The commission,
they keep the gloves.
Yes, the commission or the WBC supervisor keep the gloves and they bring to the arena to present to the fighter 1 hour before the fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what has happened with the next day weigh-in? Because there's the official weigh-in 24 hours, but then you're trying to implement the weigh-in to try to set a range that a boxer cannot go beyond a certain percentage.
Yes, what happens is that we monitor the amount of weight fighters gain from the official weigh-in until they arrive in the arena 2 hours before the fight. Some jurisdictions do not allow this to take place. Most of them are cooperative and they allow us, they even help with the scale. And it's very important. There are fighters that gain more than 15, even 20% from one day to another. It's huge. It's a very complicated matter. However, there is no relationship between the fighter who gains more weight winning the fights. In the higher weights, we have seen that they don't gain as much weight than the lighter weights. So the dehydration and the level of losing weight and body fat is much higher in the lighter weights of the categories.
Yeah. And making the ring walk. What happens at the night of the fight? What does the WBC, what are the duties of the WBC?
Well, the night of the fight, we get there to the arena. We verify everything that is in the ring, that the medical equipment is ready, that there are 2 ambulances, stretcher with oxygen, and all the medical supply for emergencies. We verify the route, emergency route for the ambulance, check the dressing rooms. We look into all the things that have to be as simple as buckets, ice, towels, chairs. And of course, it's very different. There are many fights that take place in venues that have great experience. If you go to Las Vegas, the MGM, the Mandalay Bay, these arenas, they have everything. But sometimes you go to a small town in a small city, a small country, and the duty of the supervisor and even of the ring officials, the referee, becomes much more important. The referee has to inspect the ring, make sure it has the 4 ropes, the padding is acceptable, that the tension on the ropes is acceptable, that there are no dangers outside or nearby the ring. We, of course, have a meeting with the ring officials who are going to work that event to emphasize the need for concentration, the need to be ready when the fight is going to start. It's just like a boxer, you need to warm up. If you as a judge sit down when the bell is going to ring and you're not fully concentrated, if you did not warm up, it's going to take a few rounds to get to that level. So it's a very complex, entertaining process. In able to be a good supervisor, you need to do many fights with a shadow, with a mentor, someone that teaches you all the things that have to do.
Yeah. So supervisors have to warm up the chin, right?
Yes, yes.
As the boxers,
You
they
have to
be ready.
You have to be ready and very concentrated. The WBC has a few different rules from other organizations. Instant replay, we implemented it many years ago, and there's a need to have communications with the TV network and the monitor to make sure the local commission accepts that rule. We have open scoring after the 4th and 8th round. We have the 30-second signal before the end of the round. And just all these things you have to prepare and work with the doctor. We have the green and red card that we give to the doctors for them to have ready if they do an inspection of a fighter and they try to communicate with the referee. We have seen many instances where the referee speaks English and the fight is in Korea, in Japan, Philippines, Mexico, Russia, or a foreigner referee that does not speak the same language as the doctor. The way to communicate, if the doctor shows him the green card, it means the fight can continue. If he shows the red card, it means it's his opinion that the fight should be stopped. And that has prevented many miscommunications and problems from happening.
Uh-huh. Also, banning of some substances for the corners, right?
Yes, you only are allowed water and Vaseline. The WBC introduced the use of electrolytes during the fight. And the inspectors, the referee, the supervisor have to be very much attentive if there's any other element that is used in the corner.
Mm-hmm. Does this have? I heard this has to be also agreed between the contenders, right? Between both teams of the fighter for electrolytes, for example.
Not necessarily. First is the local commission, if they accept it or not. If the commission accepts, then it's optional for one fighter to use them or not. There's a myth in boxing that if you drink during the fight, you're going to get cramps. And that has been proven wrong medically and in all science. You need to rehydrate during the fight. So you use water, you use electrolytes. It's going to help you keep hydrated during the event.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And at the end of the fight, what is the role of the supervisor with controversies? There's been many instances where people think there's been injustices or fights in the ring, or I don't know, many things that could happen.
Well, what happens basically is that you need to understand that the WBC supervisor is the maximum authority for the WBC, for our belt. And we are there to make sure that the rules are enforced, that they take place. So when you go into the situation of controversy, the instant replay has been very useful to prevent those controversies. Mm-hmm. If it's a bad decision that the judges, that the people think it should not have gone that way, then there can be problems in the crowd, problems with the corners. Basically, what we do is simply try to remain calm and have everybody be calm. And there's instances to do grievances about situations. But it's complicated. It's a sport where one punch can change everything, and it just creates a very, very intense feeling and sensation with everybody.
Yeah. And then the awarding the belt, right, to the winner, which is like the big moment for the still champion or new champion. WBC likes to exchange flags before the fight. Some jurisdictions like it, some don't. What are these flags for? What do they mean?
The WBC has been honored with the responsibility to run a program which is named BoxVal, Boxing with Values. This program comes from Pope Francis Foundation, Escolas Ocurrentes. And one of the initiatives was to bring those flags into the ring just before the fights begin. In the referee's instructions, the two cornermen exchange the Escolas and their country flag with the other fighter, with his flag and with the Escolas flag. So it is a very positive, fair play, brotherhood initiative that has been very successful. At the end of the fight, what happens is the culmination of the dream. Of course, every fighter wants to win. A fighter wants to become champion when they are challenging. It has been the moment they've been waiting for since they were kids. Or the champion who wants to remain champion. And just the awarding of the belt is a very intimate moment between the supervisor and the fighter and his corner.
Standing always for equality, for fairness, for justice, for the human life, for the human...
Yeah, the WBC fights against any sort of discrimination. We fight against the abuse of power. We promote friendly agreements. We promote brotherhood, fair play. And boxing usually is very positive. It's always trying to win and to win in a proper manner. So I am very proud of being involved in the sport because trainers, promoters, managers, but especially fighters, they have a great respect to the rules and great respect to the opponents. And once that bell rings, they engage in a friendly hug, recognizing the virtues of each one, and then they become friends.